Aloha. This is how to create a structural foundation so that you are capable of getting into elite levels of fitness. So to even get on the path to like really getting into shape to where you could like call yourself an athlete without bullshitting yourself, that requires a coherent body structure. So the structure, and that structure includes your awareness, it includes your will, and it includes your physical body. Like all those things are kind of different. And so those all have to be in the correct relationship. And once they're in the correct relationship, only then can you start lifting weights. Only then can you start playing soccer. Only then can you truly progress at anything and move on to that goal of being in elite shape. And if you don't get this coherence, no matter how hard you exercise, it's not going to work, right? The reason, like if you're deconditioned and you're like a part of you is like fat or flabby or anything else, the reason that those parts are out of control is because you have lost your structure. The relationship between your will, your body, and your awareness is kind of like broken down. And this is the equivalent of like when somebody gives you advice of like, oh, how do I do a push-up or overhead press? You know, if you were doing it like this, they'd be like, that's not the best way to get results. So you have to fix the alignment of your elbow and your hands and all that. So that's all correct. Like the alignment of everything needs to be correct, of course, but the main alignment that you're going for is the alignment of the awareness, the will, and the physical body. Once that structure is there, you will tend to have an athletic shape as your default. You won't have to like burn calories all the time. You won't have to do maintenance stuff because you are that thing. Once you learn how to be once you learn how to be in shape as a postural choice of I'm just going to be this way, then you just get that background effect of like I'm in shape. And this is why people who are in shape tend to stay in shape. And people are like, oh, it's just easy for you. And it's like, no, it's just easy for you the same way that math problems are easy after you learn math. If you don't know math and you're having to like just guess the answer to each problem until you get it right, like if you're fat and you're like, oh, I gotta go do cardio, like if you think that's the issue and you're just doing cardio to like light yourself on fire enough that it goes away, that's not how things work. And so it seems like basically you have to expend a lot of effort to keep yourself in a state of metabolic discomfort, right? To be fat, to be flabby, to be weak, to be bloated, right? So there is something that goes on when you do movement, when you do exercise, like it works. Even if you don't know why it works, like it tends to work if you do it and you do it with your full commitment, your full dedication, if you really believe in it and you really try your best. Exercise and diets tend to work, even if you don't know why. There's something about engaging with reality, with knowing that you are actually doing your best, that just tends to sort of work. That's what I would call grace. Like if your heart is correct, the activity is usually correct, and you're also drawn to correct ideas and correct patterns and correct behaviors intuitively, even if you have no idea why. Like you're too dumb to understand why vitamins work, or you're too dumb to understand why you need to eat food or do an activity, but you're just drawn intuitively to the people who promote it or just what you see, and you just do the activity and you'll notice you have results. Right? This works, right? But if you miss that boat, you'll get into this situation to where, because you don't really know what's going on, your efforts aren't fruitful, and because your efforts weren't fruitful, you don't really believe that your trying will work. You don't believe that the effort will lead anywhere, because your effort before was wrong-headed. So you don't try your best, and so you don't get the reward back of the exercise or of the fitness. This is symbolically represented in the story of Cain and Abel. Right, so the pattern I'm talking about in terms of what we're correcting with my system or my method in the water is that level of structure, right? So you're returning to wholeness, which is kind of like before the fall. So what you're dealing with, or what you're becoming aware of, is that schism between being connected or in faith to awareness or consciousness or effort of the world without questioning, without even without any sort of self-awareness. Like there's that, and that works. Except when it doesn't work, because you're doing it wrong. It's a little bit of both, but it both happens, right? We do know it. And then that leads to the downstream effects of Cain, Abel, and bitterness, and there's this resentment going on in there. So to get back to being in shape, which would be get back to Adam, right? To get back to your original wholeness, right? What should you be? What's your default state? Because you're not going to get, with this, you're not going to get to an artificial, like super muscle-bound state. That might happen if you don't know what you're doing. Like a lot of times people, if you do an exercise a lot and you don't look more beautiful, it's because you're not actually addressing your structure. You're not actually moving from and expanding your cytoskeleton. You're not actually centering that in the nutritive water of the body on purpose. You're not doing that, and so your beauty doesn't get better. Like running and getting the heart rate up and getting the blood pressure up saturates the body. So it often has effects, like positive effects, even if you don't know what's going on. But if you don't know that's what you're trying to do, you can do different types of exercise, and it won't have systemic effects, especially if you're not doing it wholeheartedly with all your effort. That's what it is, right? If you understand how the world works, you can do things at less than like all out insane, zealotry, right? If you don't know what's going on, the only thing that ever works is 100% faith and zealotry. You have to be a rabid psycho for your beliefs or for your ideas, and you 100% believe them, and your heart is right, and they work, right? But but that's a dangerous state in a way, right? To be completely led by the blood. Right? To have the health and the saturation of all your other cells be dependent on you pressurizing your blood to some insane degree, that's dangerous, because pressurizing the blood to a insane degree, like you have to do dangerous activities, like you'll get hurt. Like there's no way to get the blood up that high without it being risky. There's no technique. Well, I know a couple. But most people, there's no way to do it. You'd have to be running so hard you're getting injuries, flying so high that it's dangerous, falling so far that it's whatever. It's that adrenaline rush. It's the sexual addictions too. Like all of that stuff, addiction to violence, that's getting the heart rate up high enough that the cells saturate, right? And when that blood pressure gets high enough that it presses the water into the body, and the body, the will, the metabolism centers in the water, you get that's where all the nutrients are. So it's just healthy to be there. This is what people do when they exercise, and it's freaking way easier, if I wanted to really dig into this, to like, I'm jumping up and down. And what's my goal? I'm trying to move the water up and down. What am I moving the water up and down with? My heart. So jump roping, sweet. So I'm moving the water up and down with my heart. And lo and behold, my heart rate goes up, my blood pressurizes. That pressurized blood, since I'm in a bag, forces its way into the tissues becoming more hydrated, which means that they're submerging themselves in water and potentially even being dissolved by the water, right? Like if you have a part of you that is like basically dissolving into the water, once you have dissolved into water, you don't have weight anymore. Like, if you took a pound of sugar and threw it into a vat of water, where would you measure to find the pound of sugar? The water itself would just be a pound heavier, and then the water itself is the thing providing the buoyancy to everything else. So like by dissolving something, if the water pressurizes and parts of the metabolism dissolve into the water, that dissolution into the water actually increases the water pressure. The increased water pressure causes increased water density, or something akin to water density, like, since I don't know if water is compressible, but it causes an increase in buoyancy, because the buoyancy is the volume times the density of the water that's being displaced. So if anything in you dissolves, right, the ions, the whatever, the sugars, the fat, like whatever dissolves, as that stuff dissolves, the amount of lift, the amount of buoyancy, the amount of flotation that anything has, which is resting in that water, increases. So doing cardio is this thing where the blood's pressurizing, and unless you're doing something really stupid or you're just not trying at all, that's going to increase the heart rate, and you're going to be more in your water because you've like expanded your water and increased the buoyancy that it has on you. Like you're more whole, you're more complete when your heart rate's up. And so as you're up there from that heart rate, you can be in this state of like a higher density state, more fluid. You're making it comfortable, so you're relaxed in that state, and then you might even practice skills like soccer or throwing or fight or dodging, right? And practicing those states from the increased buoyancy. And so normally for that to work, you have to be committed. You have to do all the things that everyone talks about unless you know what you're doing. If you know what you're doing, you can very simply just do it. And then you don't have to be like a maniac running 5-minute miles. Or any of the other ways that people pressurize their heart. So your structure is this web. Like you want to have your structure. Your bones are pretty much in the water, and so the structure that you want to be paying attention to is it's the fascial network, right? So the muscles, and it's voluminous. It has this 3D space, and that's the substance, and that substance is surrounded by and dissolved in the water. So you want to feel that substance anywhere. So your basic athletic exercises is going to be go through your body scanning, and find where you're not feeling much substance. And where you're not feeling much substance is an area where you're going to have some weakness or some fat. You're not going to look good because the substance isn't there. Like there's no substance holding in your gut. There's no substance holding your arms together. There's no substance holding your ass together. And no matter how hard you work out, if you don't know that it's about just getting more substance in those areas, it's not about burning calories. It's that you lack substance. So you can feel, and like where I lack substance is my back. I just got into these postural habits. I'm sure, I don't know how common it is or not, but I had very bad beliefs about how to use the spine for a lot of my life. And so that's where I'm unnaturally disfigured. And it's always around something that we can't see, like something that we're unwilling to look at. Like I literally can't see my back because everything that I'm doing is just so literal. Water is awareness. My back is my blind spot. But otherwise, it's like it'll arise from those somatic traumas that you're unwilling to look at, and that's what is unable to be seen. So as you increase substance in these areas, you're going to see and understand those different traumas. And so you can do that just sitting still. Right? But this is just foundational athletic exercises. If you move just a little bit, you can drag that substance that you know is there, like you know it's there. I know my back's there. You know that your actual six-pack is here. You know your arms are here. Like you know they're there. You just can't feel it. If you move just a little bit, as you go through your awareness, right? You have to go through your body, your will has to go through your awareness in order for it to move. So as you move, you can feel that area. You know it's going to go through awareness, and so look for it. And because your awareness is rushing past it because of the movement, that is your awareness then presses on the object, so you see it. So you're just finding your fullness or finding your completeness by moving it through your awareness. And so you can, that's it. So you can scale, once you get this, you can scale it up and just have a ton of weight for a kinetic chain going through the awareness. You can be like moving the awareness very fast so that you become aware of yourself, and it's all drills, and it's all exercise. And like your will, your access to your metabolism, and the influence that you have over your awareness will get bigger. Like there'll be bigger waves. I'm so sick. And so that's what you want to understand, is that the will is this. What you can do is your will. Can you think? That's your will. Can you touch? That's your will. Can you hear? That's your will. Can you push? That's your will. That's your will. Who else is responding to it? That's you. That's right there. People can contemplate or be like, oh, who is the self or whatever. The self is obviously only known by what the self does. Otherwise, it's an invisible everywhere presence, right? So you're selfing right there. And then, okay, that's the obvious thing. What can we build off of the self being right there? And it goes, okay, what is the self right there? And we go, it seems to be action potentials. It's basically nerve activity, muscular activity. It seems to be skeletal-muscular activity, sensory activity, like the eyes and the skin and everything is putting together this thing to where I can experience my will. And so we're looking into that, and it's like, well, what is that? That's the breath. There's something, energy in the air, there's energy in the bodies, there's energy in the plants, there's energy in the earth, right? Even minerals, we eat minerals, right? And so that stuff comes and basically mixes together. It's dissolved in the water, right? How interesting is that? The food comes in and it's dissolved in the water of the body. That's what digestion does, is it dissolves the food into the water. And then the lungs simultaneously are dissolving the air into the water with the hemoglobin and just into the water itself. The lungs are dissolving air into the water, and so you're looking at water that has these qualities from the air being dissolved in it because it's in the water. It's changed to the qualities of the water. It's not in a bubble in the water. Like if something's in a bubble and not dissolved, it doesn't change the qualities of the water. And so I ran out of space because I make so many YouTube videos. Anyway, the air dissolves, right? And the food dissolves, and so it's actually dissolved. It's not just in the water in a bubble, it's dissolved in the water. When you dissolve into the water, you lose physical identity, you become identical to the field, and then perceptually identical to the field anyway, and then and the water changes. If you're just put into a suspension or whatever in the water and you don't dissolve, you're not taken into the field of the water. You remain your own identity, and you might be broken up into tiny little bits, but ultimately there's a surface of water against you if you're not dissolving, but you're in water. So those are two different things water can do. Is it can hold things in a bubble where the surface of the water is all around the thing and protecting it from the water, basically, so it doesn't. If something saturates into the water, it's like the same thing as catching on fire. Boom, it's gone, it's dead. Right? Like if you have an object and in the bubble, if the surface tension of the water decides to take something into it, it's the death of that thing. It's gone. Right? So that's acids, bases, enzymes, and stuff like that change what would you call it? The personality of the water. It changes like what the water will rip in and out of suspension. But if you take something out of like water, you're in the water, but then the water can also reconstitute that somewhere else as something else. And so that decision of the water, like if you can get down and you find your structure and you go, okay, there's my structure, I'm going to move. And these it's usually people find these repetitive circular patterns. and you can add weight to it, and you just do whatever you want, but like whatever makes it so that your awareness of your being is going up, especially in injured areas or troubled areas. But ultimately, like, I definitely want to have it everything, right? Because that I'm the whole fascial net. That's the goal. Once we're there, then you can start working out like an athlete and put in the time and the dedication and the energy. You can lift the weights right and do the jumps and the hops and the practices and everything, and you know that you'll progress and you'll have fun, right? Like if you don't fix the coherency of the fascial structure and center it into the water, then when you like try really hard at the sport, it's usually going to end in catastrophe, right? But getting this correct, right? You could call this a certain type of physical enlightenment. Learning about it, understanding it, doesn't do anything for you, right? This is like a good analogy, because it's water. Everything else is an analogy of what's water doing, but you'll see that it's so abstract. You'll see, let me see how to pee. Yeah, so you find it, okay, yeah, understanding like what you need to do doesn't do anything. Like you still have to do it, even though you can understand it. And even though the ultimate thing is I have a realization which happens as quickly as an understanding, the realization only happens through like practice or engagement with the thing. You have to comprehend it. And the only way you can start to comprehend it is if you're doing correct practice. So this is the inner-outer student thing in Kung Fu, right? Boggle walking, you can go in circles all day. But if you don't ever get if you don't realize how it is that you're dynamically interacting within awareness and realizing how your emotions and your thoughts and your feelings all interact with your surrounding space, you're not really learning any of like the Kung Fu, even if you've learned all of the moves. Even if you've become proficient in all of the moves. And so you'll see where you're aware because the awareness is moving past your form, right? So your will is one of the main categories, we'll call it, in this system. The will is the physical body. The physical body is all of the matter, and then also all of the activity of the matter. So that's all of the ions, the cells, the bones, the whatever. So that's all will. Neuromuscular impulses is will, right? When we're talking about athleticism, right around the realm of neuromuscular impulses, that's the only metaphysics that you really need to study. Or science. Like if you're trying to be an athlete, you don't need to know anything more really than that. Because that's the flow of the matter, that's the flow of the will. That's stuff that we found from dissecting the body, and we find, epithelial cells, we find vessels, we find fascia, we find lipid membranes, we find nuclei, we find DNA. All of that is the will. Not just the electricity that's kind of going along in the nerve cells and the energy discharge from the muscle or the ATP and all that, but that whole dance, that whole orchestra is will. I am doing this, I am here. That's my will. And then your awareness is the water that the will is existing in. So all of that will, all of that oxygen, everything, all of that is dissolved in water, and it interacts with everything only inside of water. And like that your life and your awareness, your perceptions, your actions are dependent on that interaction between the dissolved food and the dissolved air, and it's like, where is that interaction happening? It's in water. So this moment right here, everything that you're perceiving and thinking is happening in water. Water is awareness. And I don't have a third thing at the moment. But so correct technique is going to be sink and put everything inside of it. Like where you're disassociated, it's the same as being up outside of the water. Like imagine you're like really, if you're taking in a lot of air and holding on to things, if you're not releasing things that you've taken into the self, it starts to accumulate in the body. Like if you're not releasing the stuff that you eat, if you're not releasing the trauma, it does that. And it's the same as getting like a life, it's like the same as a flotation device, except it's your body. And this is usually identical to a wetsuit, right? So there's certain like things that you're taking in. If you don't give it back, you become more and more buoyant, and you can't center into the water. You can't actually, your weight can't be, water can't support all of you. So it like pushes a lot of you out. Like if you need so much support, that water can't behave as itself when you're inside of it. So it can only let you in to the degree that you can actually go in by the surface. So that's the various types of deconditioning, physical, emotional, spiritual. And so just resting, and you still feel that buoyancy, like what you're trying to feel, like what you're eating when you're praying. How do you look towards east? How do you look towards the source of creation? Is to find the buoyancy of the water. So even if you're stuck at the surface, there's just as much buoyancy, if not more. If you're stuck at the surface, you're getting more buoyancy than almost anybody else. And that's what's holding you way up. Versus somebody that sinks or somebody that's neutral buoyancy is receiving like less buoyancy, so they're able to sink or descend into awareness. Right? But like trauma makes people want to stay out of awareness, and trauma could be like, imagine the water's too hot, or the water's too cold. Or there's like a shark in the water. Or the water has no end to it. The water has no bottom. The water seems endless, the only end of it being death. Right? So if any of that happens, water awareness can become scary, so the will, the metabolism, starts to become disembodied. And that's awareness that's outside of the self. Okay, so that's the awareness that's outside of the self, is the awareness that you have self-awareness with. That's the part of you that is helpless and can't do anything. The executive control, that's the external body that's like it's almost like water vapor in the air. You've gone out, you've lost yourself to the collective, lost yourself to these big homogenizing spiritual forces that we take in as breath. But it's disembodied, so you have no control over the reality, which is the waves. The pattern of the waves on the surface of awareness is reality. Light, it's the waves, it's the waves. The patterns of waves on that is reality. I think it's also ether. This is what people were talking about when they talked about ether. And so at some point, there's either a densification or something that goes on. There's some sort of boundary layer that creates a surface between awareness and will. Right? And so at the boundary between awareness and will, or like will is inside of the awareness. Right? So will is like denser awareness. And then, so the will, this is like the bones. The bones are like the bottom of the pool of the body water. And so the bones are that bottom. They're not dissolved in the water or whatever. Then in between the bones and the surface of the water is a gazillion fractal things. And so if everything that's in the water, just like everything that's in the pool, there's a buoyancy applied to it. From being in the water, from displacing the water. And so compensation mechanisms, if you take things on, like if you take on suffering, if you take on other people's suffering, things that are heavy, if you give your buoyancy to somebody else, like if you have too much buoyancy and you can't return to God because you're stuck at the surface from how much you've taken in, like how much wealth you've accumulated, how much like the airbag that prevents you from falling into God, the only way to actually return to God is to give that buoyancy away, which is the same as taking on weight. And when you take on weight, that weight's usually enough to sink you to the bottom. But then there's the question of, how do I breathe? And luckily, this is a snorkel. So you can't really go into the sub-reality of all this, which is, paradoxically, it's like this deepest physical labor level. It's like super simple. Instead of this anatomy of like cells, mitochondria, atoms, DNA, membranes, oxygen molecules, orbitals. Instead of it being super complex like that, it's the simple substrate from which all that complexity emerges, which you would say is like under reality, but it's actually kind of here in this world. So as you breathe into the sinuses, into the head, it's like breathing into that simpler world that uses those principles to create all things, for lack of a better picture of it. I mean, it just is what it is. It's just like everything's like very straightforward, and you can figure it out with just a teensy bit of science. Like you just have to dig into things a little bit, like a little bit of necromancy, right? You have to study the bodies a little bit. You have to see what's going on with the heart, or like look into the body so you see cells. Pick apart the bodies to see DNA. The only way to get this knowledge is to kind of like dabble in the dark arts of death, of looking at stem cells and research, like, euthanizing animals and rats and poisoning things. It's all that's the death arts, right? So you need a little bit of that to understand anything, because if you don't do those things, you have a very living, naive understanding of reality. If you stay away from the insides of things, everything's very simple. It's just this surface, right? It's just light and it's just matter, basically. So from this simplistic perspective, before the brain has like dissected everything, then you only have systems with 1, 2, or I guess 3 things. The third thing that I'm probably leaving out is God, which is a very difficult thing to, there's prohibitions against saying it, and that's because it's the one thing that everyone knows. The only way that you could talk about God is to be a liar. So everyone's like, there's no one can get around this rule, so don't draw an image of God. Don't name God, basically. So it's like you'll find that there's this reality, and it's kind of like there's always 3 things, and then there's a third thing that is difficult to wrap your head around or put into a category, even though it's an extremely distinct category. Other than the way that thing just tells you the answer itself, so you have this whole planet system cycle is revolving around Christ, is revolving around God. The calendar of the whole earth didn't just do that for no reason, right? It's not like it's an accident. It's not like there's nobody writing the play. Like the play was written that way. And so, yeah, then you're moving through the water. There's basically only 2 skills, one of which is to just get the water pressure around the body to increase, right? Which, when you're moving through space, imagine that you're a wing, or that your whole body is a fin. Like every part of you, your whole metabolism is dissolved in water, and it's buoyant. It's buoyant if it's like in a bubble in water, like if it's matter, if it's physical matter. When you're centered in water, the water lifts it up, so you move, that part of your body moves with the awareness, which is non-taxing. That's effortless, right? Like will takes effort. Awareness is effortless. And you can control will just as much, or you can control awareness just as much as will, but will is invisible. So it's like, it's kind of hard. If you're gonna just grab something, it's like the will is an object. The awareness is like, the awareness is the mind itself going. The thing that you would grab the will with has to get off its ass and blow. Right? That's the force with the Jedi. That's just the flow state. It's the will. And so your will current around you is also, it's not just what you can do, it's like where you are. Like you can be standing on the shore, and that's a totally different external experience than going out to a wave break. So if people go to a wave break, which is where awareness is doing these interesting wave patterns that you can catch, then your ability, what you can do with your awareness, what you can do with your will is insanely amplified. I'm all alone. I'm the only person on the property. I'm the only one. Nobody knows. Nobody knows I'm doing this. Nobody knows I'm supposed to be cleaning. So yeah, you just So with the movement, like I have goals for my awareness. Like if I start to go down, how can my awareness help me? It can go, it can reach, I can rest on it, I can like reach out in front with it. There's a lot of things that my awareness can do. So I can study that same way there's a lot of things my body can do. There's a lot of different actions the awareness can take as you do exercises. But just sending one half up and the other half down covers a lot. And then have the body surf on that awareness to prove yourself that you can do it, and then also like start to add, maybe you could add a little bit of will, maybe add be a little bit more active without losing the surf. And the what do you call it? Yeah, it's shared. Your will is definitely something, if you develop it, you can get more and more dominating. But your will, even if you can move it a lot, it starts to become very shared, right? Like if you're like wrestling with somebody and you're that close, it's very hard to do something nuanced and precise with your will that doesn't push them in the exact same direction that you want to push yourself, right? So when you're really close, it's hard to differentiate from something that's like right here on you. So if you, like, that's where people start to like rotate, which gives a longer line, so the will can like push and pull along that spiral pattern and cause a split. And so if you just know that's what you're doing, once you get to that point where you know that's what you're doing, your physiology will start to look better and better and better, because that's some like highbrow shit. Like if you understand what I just said, that's the end result of most athleticism. So if you can integrate that material, and it's not that much, it's very simple, if you can integrate that, you will have the physique and the skill of an athlete who's just not training their ass off. But it's just easy and kind of fun and playful, and you just do it. And the reason that it got that way is because you went at it from increasing your intelligence, not from burning calories. You went at it from making the store simpler, not from understanding which like micronutrient you're missing. Right? Is it the micronutrients missing, or are you a vibe? Are you a vibe that pulls everything around you into a shape? Are you a vibe that determines what you eat and where what you eat goes? Right. So if what you're eating and breathing isn't going in the correct space, it's like it's a little bit. I think it's a little bit naive to think that the diet is very responsible for that. And it kind of is, like you have to stop the poisons, but for the most part, the body is it's a pattern in awareness. It's a pattern of will in awareness. And it's like, that it doesn't really matter what you draw that with, right? Like if you're drawing yourself accurately, it doesn't matter if you're using paint or charcoal or whatever medium you're doing. It doesn't matter what your diet is, basically the medium that you paint in. And so, yeah, if you draw on poop, like if you draw it in Fritos, it's probably not going to look beautiful. But for the most part, if you choose beautiful ingredients, like truly beautiful ingredients, then your body is just going to look like what you draw, and that's going to determine whether it looks good or not. It's not this like calorie karma bank. It's like art, like make your brain, make yourself, make your person sharper, more defined, like more, right? You have to become these qualities to get the body to look that way. It's not. People think it's work. It's work, but it's not work in that like, oh, we just have to get the dirt out of the hole. It's work of like, how do I reinvent the shovel? Right? It's work in that like I want this effort to make awareness bump into me like I do. I feel myself more when I'm shoveling. It's so hard. Shoveling. So you like, since everyone's awareness and their activities and their decisions is in this space of awareness that you can just move with your mind, that's where you get Jedi mind tricks, demoralizing somebody, seducing. Like seduction is pulling the mind in. It's a physical activity they're doing. It's not a technique. It's a strength. Both male and female seductions is a physical strength that they have. They're able to suck the mind in. And the same degree that seductive people can like pull you around and do whatever they want, that's the same degree that everybody has control over their mind or other people's minds potentially. Like everybody has that much control. Or everybody has the same lack of control that you see in terms of people's ability to seduce. Right? Seduction can be sexual, but also seduction can be intellectual. Right? I would say my videos are the same thing as OnlyFans, except for intellectualness. I want you to see the raw, naked truth of reality, and I want to make it a subscription, right? It's just porn. Like this is just another. It's a pseudo spiritual OnlyFans channel, right? Like look at my tits, which are the brain lobes. Like look at how big and nourishing these ideas are. Like my brain is lactating nourishment capable of feeding millions. Because my brain is full of water, but everybody else's brain is full of water, so everybody can know everything that I know very, very easily. It's just a couple of really simple principles. Like it's hard for me to teach it really, because it's not interesting. It's like, there it is, let's go. What do we need to do to try hard? What do I need to do to try hard? What do I need to do to care? What's your price? How much do you have to pay? How much do you have to get paid to do your best to make you think it's important? What do you have to do?